everybody. Welcome to the Gauntlet, hosted by Ancient Wharf. Thank you all so very much for coming. It's been awesome. We've had like 20 people here. I'm super excited. Sorry to stop your ditch fighting, but I think this is a really important class. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Doc Warmaster Cord. I'm not going to do all my titles. It's silly, but hi. Today we're going to talk about marshalling or heralding. It's two words for the same thing. Another name for it is referee, right? We're playing a full contact sport. Emphasis on the sport, I really do believe that. When you have a sport, you need a referee. It just kind of goes with all team sports, and that's what we're doing. You can denote a referee in Bellegarth, Dagger here, Amtgard. They're called different things, reeves, marshals, heralds. It's all the same concept. You can usually see them. They're wearing yellow. This is why you should not have garb that is predominantly yellow. In fact, if you have garb, there are exceptions like Hellhammer, but most people are not going to have yellow garb, and if they do, it's going to be their tertiary color. It'll be the smallest amount of yellow. Heralds have a couple different roles in this game, and today the purpose of this class is going to be very, very basic. So we're going to kind of define the differences, and I'm also going to teach you guys how to be hopeful. So let's say this is your very, very first event, and you see a bunch of people on the field, you see everyone's having fun, but honestly, maybe you're a little intimidated by the fighting. First of all, that's totally okay, and really, really normal. And secondly, you can do something like assist heralding at a very basic capacity, and that will allow you to be around the field and learn a lot more. Being involved, but not being a combatant. It's actually one of the ways I started many months ago. So there's two primary buckets that I like to talk about. The word I use is heralding, West Coast style. Marshalling also applies. Techno, I hear you, but I'm going to say heralding for this class. So there's two buckets: field heralding and tournament heralding. The fundamental basis is the same. One is more advanced than the other. Neither is more important than the other. If you're new, field heralding, the field heralding bucket, that's the bucket you should focus on for now, right? Tournament heralding, you've got all the eyes on you. You're an NFL ref. Well, NFL refs make the wrong call sometimes and get a lot of flack for that. So learn how to make the call first. So the basis of everything, though, comes from a really dear friend of mine, Techno. And Techno is somebody who says heralds or marshals are little lambs. Like, I'm a fancy little lamb. Why? You're loud, right? It's critical that you're loud. It's critical that you are attentive, loud, attentive. It's critical that you are mobile, L-A-M, I can spell, B, lamba. Why? Bouncer. Your job is to keep the field safe. That means a variety of different things. And the reason it's my little lambs is because there should not be one of you. So let's say we're going to start with the field heralding for now, first off, right? So you guys are all little lambs. You're cosplaying little lambs. You're loud, attentive, mobile, bouncers. What is your role on the field? Your role on the field is really simple. We're going to save questions for later, Joe. Your role on the field is really simple. Your job as a field herald is first off to make sure everybody is safe. What does that mean? If there's a big hole, I'm going to stand by the hole, make sure people don't fall into it, right? I'm going to make sure that if someone is out there clearly intoxicated, they are not out there for much longer. It's not my job to pull them off the field, it's my job to go tell the head herald and let the experienced heralds handle that. But that should be something you notice very quickly. Loud, attentive, right? So, safety, number one. Playability is number two. What does that mean? Your job is to make sure that people follow the rules of the game. And that, like getting hit in the nads over there, which is really funny, is legal. Everybody point and laugh at Jedi. Ha ha ha. So when you, safety, number one. Playability is number two. So on one hand, I want to make sure you're following the rules of the game. You're not sloughing, you're not jumping over the edge and back, right? That kind of stuff is really critical. If we're playing a scenario, I also want to make sure you're following the rules of the scenario. Don't walk through walls. Don't spawn camp if that's part of the rules, right? Safety, playability. If you're more advanced, field marshal, field herald, you can also look at things like half draw from archers. Are they full drawing too close? Are they going to hurt people? That's something you can communicate with when you feel like you know what you're doing enough, right? But if you're unsure, go ask one of the head heralds or more advanced heralds and they can help you. This is all the field heralding bucket. And the final kind of tier is realism. So what does that mean? That means just like if someone's out there in a tank top and your event has garb rules, maybe have a conversation. If your event doesn't have garb rules, which most don't anymore, right? Shove off. Let them have fun. And then I think for me the most important part as a field herald is you have decided to become the shepherd of people's fun. Take that seriously, right? If I'm going to be there devoting my vacation to make sure the field is run well, I want everybody to have a good time. Or maybe I might feel like I'm doing a bad thing. Now remember, as a new herald, what you're aiming to do is make everybody's experience easier and learn. So, if you're a new herald, a great way you can herald is you can say, hey, I'm new, I've never done this before, how can I help? And a herald might say, hey, I've got this cone, I need you to stand by this cone and yell at people when they get too close that you're an obstacle. Or, hey, I need you to stand on this line, and if anybody steps over this line, you need to just politely call them dead. So those are kind of the roles you play as a herald, especially when you're new. If you're in a situation, you're a lamb, you're bouncing around, and you encounter somebody and they give you any fucking pushback whatsoever, go get a friend. Don't do it alone, right? Another really important thing as heralds, and this is something that goes also in the tournament bucket, let the fighters be right. If two fighters say, if I saw one thing, let's say I saw Daimyo hit Jared, Jared's like, no, he didn't hit me. Daimyo's like, no, I didn't hit him. Daimyo didn't hit him. I'm not going to tell him, no, I'm right, you're wrong. That affects fun, and it ruins your fun, and it doesn't give me anything. So that's field heralding. Loud, mobile, attentive, bouncers, techno, really did it well. I really appreciate that terminology. But the fundamentals is you're there to help shepherd people's fun, keep people safe, and not be too involved. Think of yourself like stage crew in a musical. You're wearing all black. In this case, you're wearing all yellow to be very visible, so it's the opposite of that. But you're just keeping the machine turning. Guys, if you want to help and volunteer at an event, field heralding is an awesome way to meet people, get more involved, and really help your game. Any questions about field heralding before I move on to tournament? Cool! So field heralding is pretty simple. As you get more advanced, things change. As games get more complex, scenarios get more complex, things change. But the fundamental basics are, be a loud, attentive, mobile bouncer. Go in pairs if you ever are in a situation where you feel like people are not going to listen to you. Don't take disrespect. You're a volunteer, you're supporting the community, and remember you're the shepherd of fun. Make sense? Cool. So now we're going to take one very large step to the right. Why the right? I don't know. We're going to go back to the left. So, tournament heralding is different. While field heralding, you're a loud, attentive bouncer, and your objective is to just keep the field safe and have a good time. Tournament heralding, you're the NFL rep. As our game gets more competitive, as our sport gets more competitive and enters the realm of sport, and let me just do a side tangent. The best steel fighters in the world, many of them have foam fighting backgrounds. Very, very good MMA fighters have foam fighting backgrounds. What we do actually has a basis in a lot of real combat sports. So maybe I fight with foam instead of steel, but what I'm doing is still very intense, very high energy, right? Well, what comes with that? Attitudes and egos. So as a tournament herald in a honor-based game, my role is slightly different. My role is 1, to make sure people aren't fucking cheating. 2, to make sure people don't run into walls. And 3, to be the bouncer to keep the tournament safe. Xander made this point when I last taught this class, and I actually really agree with it, so I'm going to make it a really important point now. Redos should be used sparingly. Redos support the person who's sloughing for the most part. So if you're a tournament herald, let's say you're by yourself. That's not a good situation to be in. Good tournament heralding, it should be you and at least another person, if not many more. Let's say you're new, but they need help. What do? The easiest thing to do is, see if you can support not as a fight herald. So maybe I'm holding a line in between two people. Maybe I'm organizing the tournament, calling people. There's so many roles in a tournament that you can be helpful for. But if you have to herald the fight, Bulwark, can I use you as an example? If I'm the field herald and Bulwark is fighting somebody, I am going to watch the shots that land on Bulwark. And the other herald is going to watch the shots that land on the opponent. I am not going to watch the shots Bulwark throws. That shit's fast. Maybe I don't have the eye speed for that, but I'm going to watch the shots that land on Bulwark. That way that I can communicate with my herald ally and say, hey, this is what I saw, what did you see? More often than not, fights happen so fast. Fights happen so fast that unless you're really experienced, it's really hard to see. So having an extra set of eyes helps, and focusing on one person helps. I'm going to reiterate it. If the fighters communicate, don't get involved. If there's a question, you can get involved. You don't have to force involvement. Let them be honorable with each other, right? If they're calling hand, if they're calling late, let them be the drivers of their fight. Get involved only if you have to. Does that make sense? However, I start every single tournament with this. Fight clean, communicate loudly, and have fun. Why? Because I need them to know that I'm watching. And I will, as a experienced tournament herald, I will oftentimes do the whole, are you sure that didn't hit you? Or, what was that? And then we'll have a communication. And if it affected the fight, I may call a redo, or, and I stress this, don't do this if you're not experienced. I will simply look at the fighter and go, you're wrong, right? In a tournament setting, it's my job to make sure that the people who are fighting honorably are treated well, and the people who are not fighting honorably understand that there's consequences to that behavior. Because that attitude has become very prevalent in tournament fighting, I really think Winter Wars is kind of the peak of this. That, in the last 5 or 6 years, has changed, where heralds feel empowered to make the call. Tournament fighting has gotten more serious, it's gotten cleaner, and it's gotten all around more enjoyable. So, field heralding, you're allowed attentive mobile bouncing. Tournament heralding, you're an NFL rep. When you're new, what you should aspire to be in those settings is helpful sponges. You don't need to be right. You definitely don't need to be making the calls, but you should be learning, and you should feel empowered stepping up and learning. So we've got field heralds and we've got tournament heralds. Ultimately, you're the shepherds of people's fun. On the field, that's your primary role, to be a loud, attentive, mobile bouncer. And in the tournament, you're the shepherd of people's fun, because sloughers suck and we don't want them around, right? We don't want them to feel empowered to slough. We don't want them to be able to win because of it. And so we're very vocal about that. Any questions before I jump into my next spot? Cool. Yes?
You missed playability.
Huh? Playability. Well, I miss playability for tournaments. You're right. Playability in tournaments. I think like a big factor for that is being aware of things like, dude, you have armor under your garb and you're going to call armor. That's not playable.
Yeah.
Right? Or, hey man, this is a full like tanked out War God tournament. Bro, you're not calling your armor. That's you're breaking the game. Playability for me, yeah.
Or balancing.
Bourbon wins. Okay, so we're gonna jump into tips and tricks to elevate your heralding. We're gonna go to the field heralding bucket. You're, as a head herald for a field, not a beginning herald, but a head herald, The most important thing you can do for people's fun is make sure the teams are balanced. I love having people fight with their units. I want people to fight with their units. It's not always possible. So very early on, if you're the one running the field, and I'm gonna do a whole nother class on how to run a field. But if you're, yay baby! If you're the one running the field, you need to be very aware of who your fighters are and their attitudes, their facial expressions, their feelings. I know it's a funny thing, but as a head herald, if you see someone do this, that's exactly where you should go. Figure out why. Are they okay? Are they having a bad time? Remember, you're the shepherds of people's fun. It also gives you a really good understanding of people's feelings towards the game you're running, the speed at which the game is running, and the teams. I have a super balanced secret. I go, hey Kita, picnic, can you switch sides? And in one round, I can see what's going on. And so I like fast ditches because I can ping pong teams. Everybody who comes to Wharf, you see that I do escalation ditch every morning to start. Why? So I get an understanding of who's here, what are they fighting at today, and how can I make the teams most fair. Thank you. That's a really, really good point. Heralds, please feel empowered to swap people. You're also going to get, at events, you're going to get people who walk up and they don't care where you put them. They're just going to go fight with their friends. I don't really hate that. I just need to be conscious about it and move other people. Now, don't do that as a fighter. Don't do that as a fighter. However, if you do, that's okay, right? Just remember, as a herald, if the herald sees that people are unbalanced, feel very comfortable balancing people very quickly. Another thing that I think is really, really important when you're a herald, stretch. I don't know if you've ever watched a soccer referee, they run more than the players. If you're an active herald, stretch. Now, if you want a herald and you're injured, you're sitting in a wheelchair, I really believe that you could throw on yellow in all of those situations. But if you're going to be a herald in the middle of the field, you're going to be a little bouncy lamb in the middle of the field, you should try to be able to be very mobile. If you're in a tournament, you have to be mobile. Why? Because as the fighters move, I need to be able to move around and keep eyes on, in the case of a 1v1 situation, my bull, right? I need to be able to watch the person that I'm fighting and make sure that the hits landing on them are good. Another situation, we're going to go to the tournament bucket here for a second. Another situation where it gets a little complicated but can be very impactful is lates. This comes with time. Being able to see if a shot is late is not easy. It takes practice, and it's a speed game, and you should let the fighters dictate that. But if there's confusion, advanced heralds can come in and go, no, you broke plane. Dude, I've been heralding for 14 years. My entire bell career, damn. That's still hard for me, right? But people are, like, Ron is a really good example of somebody who's very, very good at that, very fast eyes. So, things to keep in mind as you're heralding. So you have two buckets, just to reiterate. You've got the field heralding and the tournament heralding. But ultimately what you're doing is you're the shepherd of people's fun, and you just want to make sure that you're also having a good time. That's the last tip I have for you. Heralding should be fun. Find a way to make it fun. You have the best seat in the house in any tournament, and you get to be right in the middle of the combat if you want to be on the field, and you can help encourage people to have a good time. Don't forget that you having a good time matters too. That make sense, everybody? All right. Any questions? I guess I'm just that good of a teacher. Love it. Thank you so much.